Hi everybody and welcome back to my modeling channel. So today we're gonna change from airliners, we're gonna build a biz jet. So it's gonna be a Learjet 55 scale 172 from Amodel. So let's open the box and see what we have inside. So we have a couple of sprues. Initially, the first sprue is the fuselage, 2/2 as we can see, and fine engravement for some opening doors, the main door, cargo door, and I guess an avionic bay. So that's the first part. Then we have another sprue with the wing. So we have the wing is in 3 parts plus 2 winglets. So it's also a very fine engravement. And let's see what continues. So now we are moving to another third sprue. Basically we have a door, we have the glare shield, and I guess this is mainly the cockpit that we're going to have here. So depending on which version we have, we're going to have different type of instrument panel, the seats, the yoke, and of course the floor of that cockpit. Then we're moving on toward the engine and engine pylon. So engine pylon, the engines are in 2 parts, and the engine pylon we have about 4 of them, so that should be a different type of engines or another version of the Lear, which I haven't found out yet. Later on we have another sprue where you'll basically have the wing fence, the anti-ice and the wing exhaust with the fan and some other parts, and I think some scissors maybe for the undercarriage. So as there is 2 engines, we have 2 of those. And one more sprue, we're getting to the tail of that Lear 55, another fence, and the horizontal stabilizer. All is in thin engravement. And we're moving now to the last sprue, which cover the undercarriage. So you'll have the main landing gear and the nose wheel as well, which is located here. We have the wheel, the main wheels basically are made with the brake unit. So we have the gear doors as well, some pitot tubes, and some other fence and antennas. So now we are going to check the clear part. So the clear part has the passenger's window, the navigation light, landing lights are located here, and we have the cockpit window as well, and the windscreen. So this is a nice little kit. There will be some work on it probably. And now we're moving to the instruction sheet. So it's an A4 format with a few pages. So you have a list of all the parts initially. Then basically the instruction. It's pretty straightforward. Enough details, enough to do a nice job, I guess. And you'll have the possibility to put your windows, but that's going to be a very delicate work, as I did that on some other models. So most probably I will use some glue or some micro crystal clear. It's like a regular glue, but it dries out and make it perfect clear when you finish them, when it dried. So I will have also to add a little bit of weight. So then the next page basically is about the wings and all the details. So you have about 6 pages of A4 format instruction sheets. The decal sheet is an A4 format as well, in color, very nicely done, I have to say. And then we have our decal sheet right here. So we have 2 options, a German registered Lear 55 with the UN title, or the Go Jet, which is American or Canadian, no, an American tail number. And so most probably I will do this Go Jet aircraft. So here are our decals. pretty straightforward actually, nothing except that there are some staples, but that shouldn't be a big issue, and nice quality. So enough of talking, and let's start building that kit. We are going to start this build by preparing our parts. So I'm gonna start to prepare the tail and the wings. The only thing is, I realize on those Amodel you have a lot of preparation because you have a lot of extra plastic coming out of the sprues. So it's like a cylinder and it's halfway through the shape of what you have. So it requires a little bit more work, but generally speaking it works pretty well. So now we're doing all the wings together and gluing the winglets and then getting the proper shape, and after that I will have to do some other parts. So now I'm working on the engine that have been already prepared off camera, and so we're gonna let it dry and now start to work on the cockpit. The cockpit was an opportunity to make some details, but unfortunately at the end we don't have much of a big sight on that cockpit. But anyway, it was quite a fun thing to do. So what I do is I put the cockpit plate and the walls, and then I will adjust it inside in the models to see how those walls are working properly. Then we're gonna put the pedestal and then the engine instruments board. So after that I will put the wheel well, and then we're gonna add we're gonna fill up some gaps on the engines and the wings, and of course on the tail. Fill up the gaps with some white Tamiya putty. I realized that the white Tamiya putty is more as a sandy putty, and it's easier to work this down and to remove all the little gaps. I find it more enjoyable to work with, so I'm using that a little bit more often than the gray one. When I have to do a second layer, then I'm using different colors, then that gives me a better understanding of what is going on. So now we are going to prepare the engine intake and the engine exhaust. So I realized that the fan disc was a little bit too big, so it required a little bit more of adjustment, and I had a big gap basically, so I had to readjust the fan disc and the insert as well. So that required a little bit of extra work, and I did that for the 4 other parts, the exhaust and the other intake. So after that, of course, there will be a little bit of putty, filling up gaps, and then of course let it dry and sanding down once again. So now we're going to work on our cockpit, and for this I use some Sky Grey XF19 from Tamiya. So I put it all over the cockpit, and then I prepare the glare shield, and as the glare shield and the seats, I will glue them on the toothpick with some epoxy glue or super glue, and it will be easier to work with a little bit later on, because that gives you more room to play with. And they can also sit straight up, and you can dry the paint. So for those, what I did is for the seat, later on I will put the armrest as well, and the armrest on those seats, one will be up, the other one down, because if you want to access the cockpit over Lear, as it's a very small airplane, the armrest needs to be up and lifted, and the cockpit will be without pilots. So that's what I would think people would do so far. So then I will let the glue cure, and I will start to paint my glare shield with some matte black paint from Tamiya, and so I will do with the yoke. So after that I will have to paint, and I will what I did was basically I found and rescale the engine instrument panel and all the circuit breaker panel from a Learjet. I printed on a small piece of paper, and then I didn't put the decals, as anyway we won't see much from outside, and I just put them on a regular piece of paper, and then I glue them inside the cockpit. So I did that for the pedestal, for the instrument panel, and of course, the circuit breaker panel located behind the pilots and on the side of the aircraft. So that gives us a little bit more details on that cockpit, some special effect, and actually it worked perfectly for that scale and for the type of view we can have. After that, I painted our seats. Basically, I painted the back, and there will be the cushions that will have to be painted on our seats. Then I put the instrument panel. Now I'm going to paint the cushions, and for this I use the XF55, the deck tan, as it's a kind of yellow gray color, and that's normally the kind of colors we have in our seats. So what I did after that, I needed to do the seat belt. So for that I used some Tamiya tapes. I think it was 0.7 millimeter wide. I painted in black, and then I was just be able to put them directly on the seat. I think that give a little bit of a good look on those seats. And then of course I will have to put the buckle on the seat belt. For this I will use some metallic paint. I will now start to sand down the extra putty that I had on my wings and the other engine parts. And for this I use normally a two-step basically sanding. I'm using a pretty rough sandpaper, about 400 or 600, and then when I'm getting closer to the result I want to have, I'm going down to 800 or sometimes 1000, and I go up to finish sometimes 1200. And on some parts, mainly the clear part, then I would use some compound, some polish compound. So we'll now finish our cockpit. So that requires some little adjustments, of course. And what I will do after that is I will add some weight on the front of the aircraft, and mainly make sure that everything fit with the glass sheet, and remove the extra modeling paste. For that, of course, I always use some modeling paste that give a pretty good weight, and it's pretty easy to handle. Then now we're gonna put the yoke, and we're gonna fit our seat in our cockpit, and after that it will be just a little bit more of a fiddling, and I will have to also put some extra parts. Then now we are going to close the fuselage in those two halves, and to make sure that we get the pretty good. The plastic was a little bit bended. Basically, I had to add some extra adhesive tape to make sure that everything stick together. And I skip filming the gap filling part with the Tamiya putty. So now you will have just to be able to see the sanding part. So for these I use also, sometimes it depends on what kind of results, but I can either dry sand or do a wet sanding. It really depends. Actually there is no proper technique, or I haven't found anything. Sometimes it's just the way you feel doing the things. So after that, of course, when I finish and I get down, I will add some more smooth surface, and I will go smoother and smoother as close as I get to the good texture I want to get. So now we're gonna clean up a little bit our aircraft, trying to remove the extra dust, and then we're gonna rescribe our engines and all our panels. So for this I use a razor blade saw, and sometimes I use a rescribing tool, but for this it was more than enough. Then we're gonna glue our engine on the fuselage, and then we're gonna adjust them that they are basically they have pretty good similarity. Then it's time, once this is dried, we're gonna add our wings to our fuselage. We're gonna glue them together, and we're gonna make sure that we have a proper adjustments. And then the wings, actually the vertical stabilizer and the fin. And then of course once it's dry, we're gonna do the filling all the gaps once again with this white Tamiya putty, and all around the wings and all the junction basically on the engine pylon and the tail as well. So we're now gonna repaint our glass shield, as there is a little bit of dust, I mean a little bit too much dust to stick on the paint. So then I will have a better result on that glass shield. And we're gonna also paint the thrust levers, and then we're gonna add the quail on the back and let it dry. Of course we're gonna have to add a little bit of putty. So while this will be drying, we're gonna close our cockpit with our cockpit window, and then we're gonna be able to process to the final stage. So I will use some Tamiya tape to mask all the cockpit window, as I won't be able, I will try to avoid basically scratching the windscreen later on, and have a better job. So then I will fill all the gaps and try to make it try to have an even surface between that cockpit window or that glare shield and the fuselage. Then once that Tamiya putty will have dried, we will start to sand it down, and of course we'll have to do all the engines, the vertical stabilizer, the wings, and all together until we get a proper result. Getting close to the cockpit window required some extra care on the sanding. You have to be really precise and careful, because if you are going a little bit too rough, you could basically move or displace the window mask and then scratch directly the clear part. So once that was done, we're gonna add some wing fence or fairing on those wings, and then we'll add also some clear part, so which is the navigation lights and landing lights on that aircraft. So basically we have 3 of them. They are located on each part of the wings and on the tail. Then there will be of course some gaps, so we'll have to add a little bit of putty and sand everything down until we have the proper shape. And then I will finish with a polish compound on those lights to make sure that we have a pretty clear part. It's now time to go to the paint booth. So for that, initially I will use a light gray color, same as the cockpit, and I will put that on basically on the window and the cockpit window. Then I will use a metallic color for the leading edge and the engine anti-ice, and also the cockpits are surrounded with some metallic colors. Then I will add some finishing part just before putting the white layer, and I will put all the antennas below and on top of the aircraft, and then I will paint everything in a glossy white color, as you will see on the final parts. So I had to do some mask to make sure that I could paint everything without having some extra white paint on the other colors on other parts. And then I'm using that glossy white color to paint the entire aircraft. So while my Lear 55 now is on a dry dock, I'm just gonna get ready and finish all the other small parts. So we're gonna prepare the undercarriage. So I had to prepare the wheels, and then I will glue them all together. Then I'm starting removing the mask, and as you can see, it was a pretty decent result, I have to say. I was quite happy with that. Then we're gonna finish by building the undercarriage all together, and then we're gonna add them on the aircraft, and that will give us one of the last part of the finishing part of the build, and then we're gonna move on to the decaling process of that build. Although the decals were very thin, they were easy to handle, I have to say. They didn't break too much. For the line and the stripes on the fuselage, I had to cut them just below the last window, as it was a little bit more easy to handle them. But it worked very, very nicely. I have to say, I didn't even need to use some decal solution. So everything went perfectly smooth, and I was very happy of the end result of those decals. The final touch is I use some micro crystal clear to fill up the windows. So initially it's white, and when you let it dry, it gives you a clear layer of plastic. I was very happy to do that because I was not very comfortable with those clear windows that are provided by the kit. So now you can see the end result of that Learjet 55 from Goodjet. I hope you enjoy that build with me. I have to say that I really enjoy that little model. I enjoy more and more those BizJet aircraft. And if you did so, please give me a thumbs up or subscribe to my YouTube channel if it's not done yet. And I will see you soon for another build review and another build video. Thank you for watching.